Joining me now is Moeed Yusuf. He's the Director of South Asia Programs at the U.S. Institute of Peace. Basically, a major statement from this militant organization. What's the message they're trying to convey to the government?
I think the message is that the state had been saying for a while, especially the military, that we've broken the back of the Pakistani Taliban irreversibly. And I think the message is we're still here, we're very much here. We may not be able to go after the hard targets, the military installations, the government installations, but we can go where it really hurts. And you've seen school attacks in Pakistan, the famous one or the infamous one in December 2014 that killed 144 children. There hasn't been much talk, but there have been at least 18 attacks on schools since then. And now this spark on a day when clearly, symbolically, they've targeted the Christian community to deepen the wedge and the fault line in the society. But in reality, quite frankly, that's only symbolic because as many Muslims would have died in this as Christians. It was just a park where everybody was enjoying a Sunday.
You know, it's interesting you bring up the school attacks, and I've seen reports where some of these teachers now packing iron, taking guns to the classroom because they're so concerned. And we heard in Daniel's report that there wasn't any security there, and one of the people he interviewed said there's never any security, will be targets again. Is there any kind of message the Pakistani government can send to the people that this type of violence, that there's going to be an end to it?
You know, quite honestly, I come from the city of Lahore. I know the parks there, and there is no security, and there can be no security. Even if you had police officials standing in that kind of crowd, you can't do much. Unfortunately, the honest truth that the Pakistani state has to convey to its people is they have made gains. There's no question that the terrorists are on the back foot, at least the Pakistani Taliban. But these kind of one-off attacks are going to continue. And they're going to continue for a while because, unfortunately, intelligence is only 90% good. And even if one of them gets through, we've seen Belgium, we've seen France, and Pakistan has any number of militant organizations. And the worst part of this is that the root of where they are coming from, the recruitment base, that still is very much alive.
How do you stop that?
It's a long-term process. I think the first thing to do is actually to start working on the minds and the mindsets. Pakistan does have a national action plan against terrorism where they're going after some of the radical seminaries, and this gentleman who blew himself up, creating all this mayhem, was also from a seminary in Lahore itself, belonging to southern Punjab, where now you're hearing the military say they're going to go after them through a paramilitary operation. Quite frankly, I'll believe it when I see it. I've heard that before. It hasn't happened. There's a lot of politics around that. But it's high time that some of this has to be dealt with. You know, the point I make to Pakistani friends and colleagues is civilized nations don't wait for 144 children in schools and 100 odd in parks before they can wake up and start doing things.
You know, one of the areas that they seem to target are these tribal border regions. Should they rethink their strategy? Because that seems to be the area that they've targeted consistently over the last few years.
You know, interestingly, when they went into the tribal areas, this time into North Waziristan, that was crucial because that was really the factory where most of this evidence was coming out, where they had a state within a state, if you will, the militants. So that was crucial. The conventional wisdom was that that's going to create a backlash. Now, interestingly, the backlash didn't come immediately. For 6 to 8 months, there wasn't really anything. And now, gradually, you're seeing them raise their head again, go after targets that are least protected. And, you know, when these kind of targets are hit, the problem that happens is the fear. The psychological trauma that the society goes through. And I was just telling somebody that my last 1 or 2 trips to Pakistan, one of the biggest changes I saw is that people were recovering psychologically. There was confidence. People were saying, well, at least we're on the right track, if not where we want to be. And these are the kind of hits that are going to pull them right back into that fear and into that psychology of saying all is falling apart.
The White House spokesman said that talking about the relationship with Pakistan, if Pakistan wants help, the U.S. will come to their aid. This has been a unique relationship with ups and downs and just kind of a divided and certainly critically from a public relations standpoint within Pakistan, U.S. involvement is not a good thing in many respects with the Pakistani rank and file folks. What about that relationship and would they ask for help from the United States?
It's a double-edged sword. Look, Pakistan definitely needs help. It's been asking for help. It's been getting help when it comes to assistance from the U.S., both military and civilian. But when it comes to a U.S. footprint, when it comes to U.S. being in the face, in the forefront of things, the reaction is very, very negative because fortunately and unfortunately, the problem has been throughout that the US, the battle of hearts and minds, the US has never really been able to win. So 80 to 85% of Pakistanis have a negative perception of the US. Now, I'd also say that the Pakistani state should take a lot of the blame for this as well, because they haven't stood up for their ally, just like I think the US sometimes hasn't been able to stand up in this country when it comes to the narrative on Pakistan.
So your assessment, we're likely to see more attacks. It's not going to end anytime soon.
Unfortunately not, and as they go for soft targets, the numbers, the casualties are going to be high. And that's the sad part. Now, a paramilitary operation may change things, but all of these are band-aids unless you go to the root cause, which is the factories where these recruits are coming from, the mindsets that are fueling this, and that's going to be a long, long battle.
Moeed Yusuf, thanks so much for coming in. Appreciate
Pleasure.
it.